All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. We're still talking to the young people, finding out what their ambitions are, which direction they'd like the country to take, and what their thoughts are generally on the state of the nation. They're still here with me. Arnold Maliba, policy analyst, is here. Zaina Kombo, convener, Youth Serving Organizations Kenya. Frederick Odhiambo, shoe vendor, uses the hashtag buy shoes. Kevin Mubadi, national chairperson, Boda Safety Association of Kenya. Sylvia Chalo, CEO, Daring Marketing. And George Nyaseme, a matatu driver. Thank you so much for making time. And there's something that is interesting here. Honorable Lillian Sioi from Trans Nzoia says Azimio is encouraging youth to riot so as to scare investors who would otherwise employ them and thus improve living conditions. The world lauds the president as having the potential to make Kenya the Singapore of Africa. And Zaina, young people are the majority of the population. Why is it so difficult for them to form a formidable front and have a united agenda? If the agreement right now is that, okay, the cost of living is a bit high, what are they recommending? Why is it so difficult to hear the young person's voice? Is it because they're fragmented into political lines? Is it an ethnicity issue? Is it a sensitization issue? What is the problem?
So consolidating the youth voice is one thing that, as a consortium, we are trying to do. But there is one thing that we need to all understand, that youth are not homogeneous. So even as we are trying to bring the youth voices, there are different sectors and people, the youth belong to different categories. So there are those that are privileged, there are those that are employed, there are those that are gone the political way, and there are those that are used by the politicians. So we started this journey a while back, about 5 years now. We are not yet where we want to be, but we continue to speak on youth issues in our different organizations and sectors. We have come a long way. Before 2018, we did not have Youth Serving Organizations Consortium. We had many other consortiums, but not a single one of them brought the voice of the youth to the front. Now we have formal engagements with the National Youth Council. We have formal engagements in Parliament with the National Youth Caucus. So we are making strides, and you cannot condemn the youth as having not coming out. During the public participation in different spaces, we encourage youth to come out and participate, give their voices in written documents, submissions. We've encouraged youth to come out and vie for political seats, but there are challenges. So we are aware of the challenges, but we keep on pushing, because this is not something that we'll achieve in 1 year or two. As a collective, the youth in this country, though the majority, we've brought that question up, that we are the majority, but we are the ones who are being marginalized. And actually, even the Constitution recognizes that there needs to be a formal way of acknowledging youth efforts and including them in governance processes. But there are those that resist in all quarters, all right? We are heading there. So we cannot despair. We have made gains. Even the parliament that exists right now has MPs that are quite young and vied for the first time. So we are heading there. The fact that I'm in this show says a lot about the youth voice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kevin, let me bring you in on this. You're the national chairperson for Boda Safety Association of Kenya. How can you be a majority and yet your voice as young people is not being heard? Shida iko wapi aswa? Where's the problem? Is it that the young people are not united, or what happens? Because even just the other day, I saw you condemning the attacks that happened along the road. Those are your people.
Yes.
How come they were not listening?
Okay, I think the young people, they need a lot of sensitization. And you know, when people are not talked to, when you are left alone to do your own things the way you think, where you wake up and whatever you think is what you do, that's where the problem starts from. But as an organization, we're working very closely with the government to ensure that we sensitize our people. You know, when you talk to people and you bring them together and you have one common goal, that's where things start changing. But if everybody is doing his own things and does whatever he thinks on his own, That's where all the problem starts. But as an organization, we are working very closely with the government to ensure that we sensitize our people, bring them together and show them the common goal. And our common goal is business. As a border sector, you wake up early in the morning, go carry people, get your money, go back home. That's our main agenda in this country.
Yeah.
So, and building our country and supporting whoever that is available that needs our support, but not destroying things around. Like that incident that happened, you know, we condemned it because that's a crop that we had passed that long time ago. Those are the things that were for the past, when people are not together, when our riders were not sensitized. But we had come a long way that we don't want to go back there again.
Yes.
So we even wrote a report and talked to the security agencies that we need a lot of sensitization to our people to tell them what to do and not to engage in such like violent activities.
Yeah. Is there political interference in your organization?
No, we don't have any political interference at the moment.
Yeah.
And even if you look at how the demonstration have been going on and whatever, we have tried our level best to remain as much neutral as possible because the election were done and things are over. Unless they will call us, the IBC will call us again to the balloting paper to go and vote. But right now we are trying to forge ahead and see how now, you know, the Kenyan problem, we are the only people who can solve them. And we are the young people, we can solve our own problems. And I don't know if we will come onto that, if you'll ask that, how we are coping. You know, when you look at the fuel crisis is not only a Kenyan thing. It is a global issue. And our president has no control. No one has a control over the fuel. But we as an organization, we are pushing our people to go on e-mobility. Why? Because with electricity, we manufacture electricity from Kenya. So the president can wake up one day and say, okay, let's reduce the cost of electricity. But the fuel, he has no control. So as an organization, we are pushing our people to change. You know, when COVID was here, we were forced to change and go online. We were doing our meetings on Zoom. Yeah, the physical meeting were aborted. And that's how we coped and moved forward. So when the fuel is expensive, we need to look for other ways. How can we look for other ways? We'll go to alternative B, which is e-mobility, and we are happy that the president is pushing that. And our members also see that when you are using the e-mobility, you get more money than on fuel.
Yeah. And
also it is safer because you see these engine motorbikes, the one that use petrol, they vibrate a lot. So they shake you the whole day when you go back home. You are confused. Yeah. But the electric ones, they are quiet, they are cool. So we need to change. I think we just have to change our mind perspective and move forward.
So you as the Boda Association support this movement to e-bikes?
Yes, we 100% support the movement to e-bike. One, because of global warming, the climate change issues that are surrounding us. Yeah, and we need to live in a safe and cool environment.
Okay.
Yeah, imagine, on the other issue, do you know that bodas in Kenya, we consume 5.4 million liters per day of petrol? So 5.4 million liters, that is enough if we can save that from the government. So the government will not spend more money in purchasing oil. They'll use that money to do other things. So we need to come together, pull our socks together and cooperate to ensure that we save our country.
But is there a clear transition from the current motorbikes that you have into the e-bikes? Has it been explained to your people and they understand what it will take? Do you know where you're going to charge those bikes of yours? Have those been explained? How much will it be? Where are the stations? Has that been explained to you?
Yes, we are championing that. And we are having a lot of conversation with the people from outside, the manufacturers and the government of Kenya, the members. We have, in fact, last week we trained and gave out almost 50 bikes where the CS came to launch on e-mobility. People were taken through the training for almost 3 weeks on what the importance of e-mobility, how they work and how they will be operating them. So there is that educational process that is going on and we are championing that. We are fully involved in the process. Yeah. So with the time, everything will be in place. Okay. Yeah, because this is a new thing and it cannot just come once. Okay. But the transition is on high gear. We have several companies that are coming in to champion the e-mobility. So we are good.
Okay. Yeah. Fred, as a business person, what do you think is missing for the young people to form a formidable front towards anything that comes their way? When in your business, has anyone ever asked you which region you come from, or are they only concerned about the products you're sharing with them? And how come the youth don't have a unified voice over issues?
What do you mean the youth don't have a unified voice? I think those that came out during Maandamano, the protest time on Friday, the other week, and the other day, are majorly the youth. They might not be able to do it with an approach that you think is right, but maybe the approach they took is what they thought is right. And we cannot blame them for the approach they took, because I think that was spontaneous, as we may say, because unless it was planned, we cannot say that they didn't come out as they were supposed to.
Yeah, but Honorable Lilian Sioi here is saying that is encouraging youth are being used to scare the same investors who would actually bring jobs to them. Do you agree that the youth are being used? That's why I'm asking you, how come they don't have a unified voice? Because if they're the majority, then they would take a position and say, this is what we want, and this is how we want it done.
Politicians are fond of using these youths. So when sometimes they come out on themselves, they can't believe they came out by themselves unless they were used. So maybe she's used to using the youth so that you can say wherever youth come out in their numbers, they're being used.
Yeah.
But I tend to think they're just speaking their voice.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Sylvia, why aren't the young people speaking in the same voice, in your view?
Trevor, I feel what she said, that we have different categories of youth.
Yeah.
I believe we here who are in the panel, not all of us were in the Maandamano. Reason being is I tend to believe that some youths have not learned how to find the balance. When we were in COVID, we learned how to transition to do meetings and everything online. So not that I'm blaming the youth that they're not educated and they do not know how to balance the transition. I feel like regardless of how things are tough, youth need to have an open mind. Youth need to ensure that they're not being used by the politicians. Because if I'm a youth, I've learned how to find my balance, the situations are tough, economy is tough, then I'll not go out. I'll play along, I'll wait for other people to go and undermine out there, then I'll go about my day the next day as if nothing has happened. So it's about just learning how to find the balance and knowing how to transition with how the economy is tough.
Okay.
Yeah.
George,
Yep.
Niaje mayutman ni kama hawaongei na sauti moja. Kila mtu akutuna stori zake. Kuna wengine wanaingia maandamano, wengine wanasema serikali imefanya hivi na hivi na kwa ni vita. Kuna wale wenye hawakuwa na issue na msee. Hao walikuwa wanataka tu waoneshe hawafeel poa juu serikali inawafinya. Lakini mayutman nao ndio majority, hawaongei na sauti moja. Ndio kama watu wa Young wangesema leo ati tunaingia maandamano, atuguzi gari ya mtu, tunakaa tu chini kwa barabara, ingefanyika hivyo. Lakini tunaona bado kuna wengine wanapigana, wengine wanauana, wengine wanauliwa. Nao ndio majority. Ni aje waongei na sauti moja, waseme tu sisi tumeamua ni hivi na ni hivi na itakuwa hivyo.
Unachekiniaje? Kwanza watu wana lack leadership kama youth. Lasa nikiongea kwanza kwa hii sekta yangu, unacheki. Sekta yangu kwanza ukipata kama chairman wetu, hata si chairman uchaguliwa hadi. Yeye jichagua kivyo.
Yeye ujichagua.
Anadinga. Anataka sosi dinga za wase. Sio kuna sense hapo. Sio chiki hata saa wasaki leta noma. Na anajua anadinga. Na kuna vile pia anakula fiti anakanyagia. Alafu kuja kwa mayu tunapata tuna sauti moja. Juu kuna wale pia kuna wale mayu anakula fiti na kuna wale sako juu ya dimanga, unaona? So unapata wala wako juu ya dimanga ndio wengi kuliko wala anakula fiti.
Sasa ni aje wenye kujua dimanga na dimanga na kwa mawe, lakini swali yako is crazy. Ni aje wale wenye kujua dimanga vile unasema. Yao wenyewe wanaweza kuungana waseme sasa sisi jusini wase wenye tunaumia, huu ndio msee wetu na huu ndio msee anatulead. Ni aje hiyo pia ifanyiki.
So unaweza kwa juu ya dimanga hata kwa leadership sema vile tuko hapa tuko juu ya stone, unaona? Sasa unaweza chagua leader hapa. Na leader mwenyewe pia unaweza patana yeye ni hizi skills juana yeye. Unaona? Na ukiona saizi msana yeye ndiye anasikizwa.
Yeah. So say issue ni pesa.
Ni do.
Okay. Arnold, what is the issue here? And the reason why I brought this question is because you've been on all sides. You've been on the National Youth Council, you tried to run for political office, and you've still been a youth leader. What is the issue here? How come the young people don't speak with one voice?
Probably I would regard myself as a sector specialist because elsewhere, wherever I work, I am considered a youth worker. I still work for young people, and for most of my adult life, I've worked for and with young people. I think, first of all, the definition of youth as is in the Constitution for me now, after working with young people for a very long time, locally, regionally, and even internationally, I think we need as a nation to have a conversation about the definition of young people. Because Article 260, I wouldn't go down there on definitions, you find that the youth is defined as anyone who has turned 18 and not turned 35. Those are 17 years. So a child born today, when you turn 18, actually becomes a youth when you are just checking out as a youth. An 18-year-old does not have the same needs as a 20-year-old, 25-year-old, 30-year-old, and even a 32, 34-year-old. I think it's time we also just accepted as a nation that I know the African Union Charter, which we borrowed heavily on defining what a youth is. The initial youth policy we had actually had put it at 16 to 30. That was in our policy. And then, of course, later on, it was reviewed when we did the Constitution 2010 and widened it to actually mirror the AYC, the African Youth Charter. But I think it's unfair to actually call a 34-year-old youth, and this is how I'll actually defend that. That, in a country where we are a child-rich nation, people who are between 0 and 18 form almost 50% of the population. Then now the youth, you hear them talking about we are the majority, we are the majority. They're not the majority. For the whole population, the youth, now people between 18 and 35, are actually about 32%. That is why when it comes to the votes, our votes is 50-50. The folks you consider over 34, and the people who are 18 and 34, you realize it's almost 50-50. But then, now politically you asked, why are they not speaking in one language? 100%, there is no vote block called the youth. I know. I've been at the National Youth Council. I've been a youth leader, both in church, Madare, where I was born, in school, in college. I know that young people exist in all forms except when it comes to a political vote. They don't exist. They can speak so eloquently both here on media and on social media and seem like they are very united and they know what they are doing. But when it comes to vote, they will vote like their grandmothers in the village. No difference. So the youth identity, when it comes to politics, is some other identities are stronger and they overwrite that. So, and I'll give you the ethnic identity, for example. It overrides youth. It doesn't matter. They can actually be on social media saying everything else. By the way, if you were to call even a snap election today, we are likely to vote the same way we voted in last year. There will be very little change. So sometimes I think we've really not gotten to a level where the youth have been socialized sufficiently, or there's been political education to actually allow them to realize that the youth identity in and of itself can actually be a political identity. It does not work. So it's easy for them to come out. Even the young people that you actually are pointing at when you say that they are in parliament, they had to align to some other identities, whether it's political, ethnic, clan, other interests around there, to actually make them electable. Yeah. So, so you're basing this on ethnic identity and not money, like George was saying. George was saying that when you're going to pesa and you're not actually have money, but if you're not ethnically correct, you might not win. There are a lot of people with money, and they are not winning elections, even in the villages there. So, number one, the biggest problem is actually ethnicity. Not that ethnicity is a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's who we are as a people.
Okay.
But then we should, if ethnicity is all we are, then of course there's a problem with that. But then the biggest problem with our politics has been, number one, ethnicity, or tribalism. Number two, of course, now tokenism, or the sonkonization of our politics, where it doesn't matter what I have done out there. So long as I make money, I come out here and buy you. But then you have to align. That is why people are aligning towards certain ends. So I have run for office. I have won in some, like at the National Youth Council, youth leagues of political parties, being the first chairperson of the TNA Youth League. But I've also run for the general elections, and I've also lost. Voters have got a way of teaching people who come with the policies a little fear of God. You can
like
mean well. You know, like we are here in Dagoretti North. This is where I ran. And they taught me a little fear of God.
Yeah.
As in, and they cheer you a lot of that. When you go around here, you see a lot of my branding, reflectors everywhere. They're all over in this place. You can't drive around without seeing them. But at least they said that is not what it is. But you know what really made sense for them was a party at that particular time. So there's the issue of party. There's the issue of ethnicity. There's the issue of money. People in this country know their problems. In fact, young people know their problems.
Yeah.
They will tell you they need education, skills development and training. They tell you they need market, both for their services, that is jobs, and for the jobs they are doing. They will tell you they want credit for their businesses. But when you come and you speak that, like for example, this particular government has actually outlined that, where they want to go. Those young people are not listening to them now. At least a little bit of them are actually being polarized not to listen to them. So the youth identity for politics is going to take a little bit of time. It is sad because 32% of the entire population, and now let me just be specific here, talking about millennials. Now, millennials here, anyone who was born from 1980 to 1997, that is the biggest burden of our workforce now. Those are the people who are shouldering the biggest responsibility. Their parents are now old. They are now bringing up children. You know, millennials are no longer young. Those are now, let's just call them ni wazee kidogo, as in wamefika hapo, because now there are guys who were born after 1997, the Generation Zers. They've come of age. They are also actually 33%. They are more than us. It's only that a number of them are not now in the age of majority. So from where we sit, if you look at those guys, I'm sorry to actually use this, but they're the people Maina Njenga used to call the 1, 2, 3, 4 generation. We, the millennials, are people who love to have one wife, unless you are over 40, or until you have been character developed. So they love one wife. You want 2 children. You want a 3-bedroom house. You want a 4-wheel drive car. That is how we, and it's about myself, I. Also, for millennials, the biggest problem is that we are very selfish. Unlike Generation Zers, the guys behind us are a little bit organized. They know how to work together. They love to be part and parcel of solutions. But for we millennials, we are very selfish. It's about my degree, my wife, my children, I. We join the chorus. We go to social media, it looks like it's a congregation of mourners. We go to Twitter, people, cost of living and everything else. When they go to vote, they don't vote differently. So probably we just need to stop pretending that as a youth, we really are serious about politics. We are not. Trevor, just allow me a minute.
Yes.
James Orengo went to parliament before he was born. He's still around here. And he did that when he was a young person. Do you know that the only millennial who owns a political party, I think, is this MP for Ugenya?
David Ochieng.
David Ochieng. The other millennials who are doing well, including governors, the ones that I wouldn't mention, are busy in other people's party. Raila Odinga ran for president first when he was 45. Where are they? William Ruto left university, did a few things here, and he went to politics directly. So we as young people, at least our generation, the biggest problem by the way we have in organizing our politics now is the millennials. They are not ready to organize because they are too selfish. Probably 844 messed us up. I don't know, but it's something, it's a subject that can actually be studied.
Zaina disagrees vehemently. Is it an ethnic issue? Because Maliba says when it comes to voting, you vote like your grandmother. It doesn't matter.
That's the truth.
I think that's anecdotal. If you can bring empirical evidence to suggest that the youth in this country are voting ethnically, and especially from the last elections, then I would try and understand. But at the moment, I think the last elections broke the ethnicity issue. And it was about the haves and the have-nots. And that is why the youth are so angry right now. Because as he already said, the cost of living was already high last year, but we were given promises. And it is those promises that are making people angry. Because it is this bloc that still voted in the government. And we read the manifesto, we understood it, and we were so hopeful. Of course, for those who voted, because we also understand that there are those who didn't vote at all. But the accusations is making that millennials are selfish, millennials are this and that. We are trying our best to organize, okay? He might have been character developed, which is fine. And he also needs to move on, okay? But you cannot clamp everyone in the bandwagon of lamenting on social media. There are many, many other different sets of youth doing so many beautiful things, including encouraging the Gen Zs and the older persons and everyone else to go for public participation, because that is where our voice ought to be heard the most. Okay. And in this case, if you look at the Finance Act, majority of people, 90%, I mean, there were, what, was it over 1,500 or 1,400 submissions?
Yes.
Majority of the people who submitted said, this thing is not right. It's not fair. And where else do you wish that our voice be heard? Okay. And it is because the government did not listen to that we now find those that are angry going to the streets. Of course, we condemn violence by all means, but we cannot purport to be here saying that, you know, youth should be doing this. Everyone is feeling the heat differently. Okay. If you can afford a meal today, if you can afford school fees for your child today, if you can afford even having a child to start with, there are those that cannot. There are those that have slept hungry maybe for the past 2 days. Yeah. Previously, we used to speak about 1 meal a day, that people are going to 1 meal a day, especially COVID. But you can imagine, past COVID, we are still trying to recover, comes elections, and then now.
Okay. George, ukabila bado ni issue kweli kwa vijana?
Chini ya maji.
Chini ya maji tu. So wasemi nje, lakini kila mtu anajua ukabila bado ni problem.
Kuna hilo ukabila iko. Tuseme vile tuko hapa. Na mselida fulani anafaa tuseme asitumamie, unaona? Ndio msana zaka hapo uli nani. Ashika design. Yaani kiroho tu. Hata kama ni ile inapigwa secret ballot. Unipiga tu kidesign za majo unaweza.
Juu kabila yake peke yake. Ama kuna vitu zingine unaangalia.
Hapo tu sawa.
So story bado ni ukabila. Jana.
Ukabila pia iko. Ukabila na do.
Ukabila na pesa.
Vitu mbili.
Okay. Kevin, is that an issue even in your association?
No, for us, by the way, we don't care about our tribe is border, and you always see how we always operate. Whenever one of us has a problem, we come together as one. So I think we are trying to fight that. The issue of tribalism is a past tense in our sector. Okay. And we are really championing our people. And you could hear people even saying that, why can't you be like the borders? Because they work as a one team. We don't care about you are from which tribe, we are from which tribe. And that's what we always tell our people, that we at the border sector, we are one family. Border is a family. So don't look at someone that he comes from which region or whatever region. And this, for example, when you go to the northeastern part, you will find that people who operate from those areas, they're from Isiolo, from Wajir, they're not the natives from there. They are people from other regions, but they are there, they are working. And they have coexisted very peacefully. There's no day you have ever found that the border people are fighting in Wajir or wherever because of tribalism. Yeah. For us, the border is a business, is a family that we all embrace as one. Okay. So we don't have those tribalism things now.
Sylvia, is that still a concern? Ethnic identity? Have you ever worked somewhere and you're judged based on where you come from?
No, I think maybe you're judged based on gender.
Okay.
Yes.
So now that's a different conversation. Yeah. You're judged based on gender.
Based on gender.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what have you heard people tell you before?
Well, being an entrepreneur or rather business person as a woman is something I believe it can be another discussion.
Yeah.
But it's quite challenging. There are rooms you enter and you feel a bit challenged just because you're a woman. So I don't think it's more of tribalism. For me, I'd say it's more of gender.
So you feel challenged because of the people you meet there, or is it the people who are there who challenge you? Because there's a difference. Is that coming from you, or is it them who have a perception of you because of your gender?
It's them who have a perception of me.
Okay.
Because of the gender, yeah. Because they believe there's some opportunities that are meant to be for men. There are boardrooms that only men should sit in, not a woman. There are certain positions that only a man can fit in. So it's quite challenging.
Okay. Fred, is ethnicity still an issue in this for young people?
To me, in my daily activity, probably the business I do, is not an issue as such, I would say. Because majorly I do my business on social media, and I meet all these other people despite, regardless of their political affiliations and their tribes. All of them show up. I think I have the best clientele for myself. Sababu, they don't support my business, or they don't inquire based on who is selling the shoes. Sababu, I use my social media with all my 3 names, but people I would think cannot support my business are the ones that are doing it in a very big way.
Okay.
To me, it's not an issue as such,
Okay.
I would say.
Let's switch this conversation and now look at where you started from so that we know how you are coping, because that is the conversation we wanted to have. We're just talking about generally how the government is treating you. How did you start your business and how are you coping right now? How did you get where you are?
I started my business by opening a small shop around Jogoo Road. But as things turned out, I ventured into social media because Kenyans I think they like social media, and it is the easiest way to do business currently. And that is how I grew with a lot of other projects that have probably pushed me to this extent.
Yeah.
There are some community-based activities around Eastlands, in Dandora, in Makongeni, around Makongeni, Jogoo Road. I've not been running my business as such, but as an organization, because there are people that depend on me in a small or big way, depending on how they look at it.
Yeah.
And these are majorly Kenyan footballers, whom I've actually been of the biggest support, because I also sell boots to them, and it is not majorly about my business.
Yeah.
It is not majorly about my business. If we could actually get probably if we could have more time, we could actually discuss this, but it's not about this business to me personally.
Yeah.
But to people who also benefit out of the profit that I make. Yes.
Let's talk about it now. I mean, what are the lessons you wish a young person watching you right now would learn? You as an entrepreneur, what are the lessons you've learned over time? If somebody's thinking, okay, maybe I want to also start my own business right now, what are some of the lessons you've learned?
According to me, I will not measure it on the profit that I should make out of the business that I'm doing. Of course, business is supposed to be about profits. But to me, profit have come my way because of the community activities that I do, or the reach that I do through the hashtag buy shoes that I use.
Yeah.
Because people have shown interest.
Okay.
People that have wanted to give back to the community have been coming through this same business. And the community activities have actually tried overshadowing the business.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And George, we ukiangalia hivi sasa, ni nini umelana so far? Hii time yote umekuwa dere wa matri. Ni nini unaweza ambia msee mwenye kama anataka kuwa dere mwenyewe, unaweza msho nini? Kwa hii biashara kunaendaga aje? Ni nini aswa unafaa uzingatie sana?
Unajua, kwa hii sekta yetu jo, watu wameenda shule jo. Macheki. Sasa vile watu wameenda shule, ukienda kutafuta ni vile job hakuna. Juu saa mimi nikikuja hapa ni day job hapa Citizen, jo unajua kuna masheria jo, sauti nini. Sasa kima 3 bora tu nimecomply, niko na documents zangu. But niaje si mbaya, ni job tu fiti. At now vile pia job imekuwa tricky, unaweza ingia tu ndani, fanya mambo yako. Na uondoke, ni kama bridge fulani. Unaweza ifanya for some duration fulani. Ukiomoka pia unamoka na yako.
Yeah.
Basa pia gavana tukoroga, mara inaleta gari za stima, unaona? Sasa pia mimi kama irori. Sasa gavana stima yake jo. Kuna vile ni trick, unaona?
So wewe usupport your idea ya magari za stima?
Ni support, lakini pia ni advantage pia kwa wenye dinga, unaona? Sasa mwenye dinga kama tuseme kama gari ya diesel, unapata nikifanya job, kuna site mido na kunywa kama diesel, kama mimi kunywa roughly, kuna wala kunywa 8 to kama 15,000 per day. So unachiki pia mwenye gari akiona gari kunywi mafuta na ni ya stima, hata kile gari ya mafuta irudi kwa mfuko yake, unaona? Alafu anakuja na masheria, sasa hii gari ya stima mimi ndakulipanga mwisho. Kuna zile zimekam. Si mbaya, ni idea tu fiti. Lakini pia una gari na upande zote watu wakwetu considerate.
Lakini kuna wala pia wakiuza madere wa matri ati kuna venye nyuko wa rough kwa barabara, mnafinya msiku kwa kona, mnaenda wrong side, mnavunja rules kaa zote. Lakini kuna wengine pia wanadai ati juu hizo magari zenu ni za masanse.
Hiyo pia ni kelele.
Si ukweli.
Ndio, kuna instant fulani. Unajua pia madere si wote ni wabaya. Kuna tu wale tu specific tu.
Yeah. Lakini ushaona kwa industry yako wasenyo wanaendesha madere za masanse, kuna venye wako ni vichwa mbaya. Lakini
pia masanse jo, kuna before alikuwa na magari, lakini pia kafika time usororaji kaingia, wakaondokea, unaona?
Yeah.
Even though kuna wale manager, si ati ni, unaelewa? Manager in quote, sana isimamia kidesign. So unapata pia mimi kani dereva mathri nikijua pengine ka inspector ndio buda yangu, naweza fanya mambo yote. Ndio nikijua after all niko na Godfather.
So wewe mwenyewe kama George, mpango yako ni nini kutoka hapa? Ulianza kuendesha matri wewe?
Nipiga hii wera.
Yeah.
Tufute tu do kama ni kuventure. Kuna unaweza ondokea matri Uber yako muende kwa Uber. Kuna ama ufungue business. Si lazima pia tukufitu kwa matri hapa. Unaweza pata ndio source yako kupata capital fulani kwa hiyo.
So inamaanisha saizi kuna ka youth man anakuwatch, inamaanisha lazima ufanye kazi more than one. Uwezi piga job tu moja.
Kwa life ya sahi, life imekuwa tricky buda. Lazima tu gonge huku na ugonge huku.
Okay.
Ndio saa zimit.
Okay. Sylvia, how did you start your organization?
Well, I think we're one of the few people who thrived during COVID. That's when companies realized that they need to go digital. We started educating people on the use of digital. He's mentioned he's running his business on social media. And a lot of young people who are running small businesses right now are having their own clientele based on social media. So I saw an opportunity. Despite it not being part of my background is in journalism. And
so you're a trained journalist?
Yes, in fact, we should be seated there, co-hosting anyway. So we saw an opportunity.
Yeah.
And we decided to run with it. So far, I think what I can tell the young people is let us learn to sharpen our skills.
Yeah.
Life is not what we learn in school. You might realize that you're talented in a different sector. You might realize that you might make money in a different career. So mine is to tell the young people, let's sharpen our skills, let us learn daily, and also learn from those who've made it.
But from you, as now that you're talking about lessons, as a young lady yourself, and you say there's those challenges, places you enter and people think you shouldn't be there, how have you dealt with those challenges? Because I'm sure there's a young lady right now watching you and thinking, I have gone through that, but how did you handle it?
Keep on trying. Never stop trying. For me, I'm a strong believer in always showing up. Show up. Because there are rooms okay, for instance, if you plan to have, let's say 3 meetings in a day, trying to source for business, you go to the first one, it fails, you enter a room, someone looks down upon you because you're a female, then you fail to show up for the second one, and maybe that is what you would have closed. So my rule in life is always to show up.
Okay.
And To the young girls, it's not easy. Try and also work with men. Learn the habits of men. Because men are the most, okay, in my opinion, I feel like men are the most successful people when it comes to business. So I try to hang out with men in the industry and learn how they even do their negotiating.
So collaboration
is the thing.
Okay.
Yes.
Zena, do you agree?
Yes, I do.
And how did you start this organization? Because you're a convener, Youth Serving Organizations Kenya. And what does it capture?
Actually, this was started by Nerima and Mbuki Mburu, who came up, who of course realized there was this gap in the youth voice. But personally, I started by volunteering.
Yeah.
While I was in campus waiting for graduation, I started joining, first I started by joining FIDA as a student. And then through the exposure and the meetings, you get on networking and you get more connections. And I found my way to Majengo informal settlements. I am not from Nairobi, so it was a bit difficult in the beginning.
Yeah.
And by then, there were a lot of EJEs, extrajudicial executions, so it was a bit scary, but still, I went in there with an open mind. And I found people in need of legal services, which I offered. So I managed to
On a volunteer basis?
Sorry?
You're volunteering at that point?
Yes, on a volunteer basis.
Okay.
I was still a student waiting for graduation, undergraduate that is. So from there, it was just going to different spaces, again, volunteering to do things, drafting minutes, legal memos, supporting people.
Yeah.
Some clients used to take me out to Kakamega to help them in filing their pleadings. And that's how, I think through the work, the work sold me to many other people and I got referrals, and that's really how I've gotten where I am today.
Okay.
But for the consortium, it was started by the two very able young ladies. And then they opened it up to others who we graciously joined.
Yeah.
Of course, it's on a volunteer basis. Everyone coming in, putting in what you have in terms of resources, not just financial, but your technical expertise, your time, because it entailed a lot of sacrifice. Initially, meetings would be held very early morning because by 8 people needed to report back to work. Just like that, and with consistency and persistence, then people started buying in the idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Arnold, you as a senior youth yourself, what are some of the greatest lessons you've learned in your journey? And you've said you've been character developed when it comes to politics. You've been around, because I hear collaboration, I hear persistence, I hear diversification, I hear volunteering. What are some of the greatest lessons you've learned that young people can? Actually,
at this particular point, I consider myself a junior elder.
Okay. Now no longer senior youth, now junior elder.
I'm a junior elder. I'm hoping that the people in Matungu and the Wanga people will consider me for an elder position when time comes.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm still young. But then there are a few things I've done. You know that I actually started life as a journalist. I wrote newspapers, I was a sub-editor, but then I loved politics and then, of course, moved on. I've got a few friends that we started with, Benjamin Mendes of this world, other guys we've written with, others moved on. Actually, my first editor is actually a police inspector today. That is how dynamic this thing is.
Yeah.
But then, of course, I moved into governance space and public policy. I picked public policy because for me, that was always really a problem because, in public policy, we consider ourselves government technicians. We are the people who make government work. Because government as it is a big machinery. People can complain and there's a lot of English and a lot of sayings, including Mandamano, about it, but it needs somebody to make it work. There's a segment that I've actually learned. She's spoken about collaboration. I would really love to build about that. When I came into the youth sector, I was all an outsider because I had just come from the media. And unfortunately, I was working for New Media, which is a South African media house. So when I came in, I was relatively an outsider. And every sector, he spoke about cartels, every sector has got its own cartels. So today, even as she sits here, she would know if she were to speak to Nerima Wako, Mbuki and the others, that the new generation of youth advocacy and activism that is actually here was built by some of us who literally just decided to flatten that particular field so that anyone can actually come in. And you know what I've actually done? One of those things I've really learned by the people I've worked with. For example, when I was at Emerging Leaders, I remember Karen Wakoli one day asked me, you have done so much work with young people, but what do you really regret?
Yeah.
And I told her that the one thing I regret is that there are not so many young people that look like myself within the youth sector. And she told me, do you think you can actually do the mentorship? That's actually how I ended up at Emerging Leaders briefly. And the one thing that I've actually picked from there has actually to mentor other young people. I can tell you, this could look like it's a boast, but 40% of the young people who are doing politics, including specifically commentary on TV, the commentary of young people, 40% of those young people are my mentees. That is one thing I'm actually happy with. Two, there is one thing that people who are local here, especially those who've gone to college, are afraid of doing, venturing outside. A number of people know that besides me showing up on TV and running the Open Future Hub, a lot of what I do is actually consultancy in neighboring countries, specifically Somalia and DRC. Those have been my areas to go to. And I was actually referring to her talking about collaboration. I can tell you that I know a group of young people, myself being part and parcel of them, we know how to take care of each other. If you're in Somaliland, if you're in DRC, you see a job I can't see, we call each other. There are spaces a lot of people don't want to go to. But a lot of guys who are here, I hear them, I see their work, I see how they have written, and I think this could be very good consultants. They could actually work well within those particular spaces.
Yeah.
But you know, being a consultant means that you will have to have very long nights. You have to have discipline.
Yeah.
Locally here, as a consultant, you don't get a lot of money. There are already guys who have taken over these spaces here, and they get literally all jobs, even though you will know that the jobs that we do elsewhere.
Yeah.
So if you look at the policies in the region, for example, you will find my name all over it. If you come locally at home, but for youth policies, there's not so much I've done locally here. But elsewhere, I am actually celebrated. So I have decided to actually go where things work for me.
So you venture outside.
You venture outside.
Okay.
In the region, you will actually realize that we have got a glut of talent here.
Yeah.
We've got a glut of competencies here, and people don't just want to move outside. Because you tell somebody, let's go and work in Somalia, and they're like, where will I be living? How is it? We've gone there. And like I can actually tell you, that country is beautiful. Those people there are beautiful. You learn things. That is why, for example, after working in that space, I still work there. When I come here, one of the three things I've actually decided is that in my lifetime, at this age,
Yeah.
if I wish that this government fails, I will fail. Because the age group that we are in,
Yeah.
the government during that particular time, if it fails, actually, you are very unlikely to succeed as an individual.
Okay. So
That's
there's a
what-
domino effect of it.
So for me, one of these things I actually have to ensure is that this government must work, whether it's Ndekni or Kithni, it must work. I must support them to work, because if they fail, I can tell you my children will actually eat a lot of prayers and a lot of hopes and everything else. And hope is a very good breakfast,
Yeah.
but a terrible dinner. So I am at the age where I cannot hope that these guys fail and somehow I'll get around there. As a person who's been in governance around here, worked with young people and still hope that one day I will be president, I have known that if you do not collaborate, you don't go anywhere.
Okay.
And she argued here vehemently about young people not being able to work around. As a veteran of this sector, I'll tell you one thing, that we still have got that boy in us. I know some of them are girls. You know, when we were young, we were very selfish as kids, that either if I am not in it,
Yeah.
no one else will have it. A lot of time, that still happens in this particular space. That is why, for example,
Yeah.
I want to challenge them to actually, like, for example, stop giving a lot of their time to the youth-serving NGO consortium and make the National Youth Council work. Because when you speak about the youth voice not being heard properly, we have not had the election for the National Youth Council since we were elected. I served 2 terms and left. There has not been elections. There is a law. There are guidelines to that particular end.
Yeah.
All we see is people are meeting in other smaller groups that can actually make money.
Okay.
Make the National Youth Council work. If young people had a proper and functional National Youth Council today,
Yeah.
I have told that to the CS for Youth. I have told them, I have told everybody, go back and have young people go to the ground and elect their representatives.
Okay.
The last time young people elected their representatives in this country was in 2013. There is a law. There is framework. What is so difficult in making the National Youth Council work? Let us not come up with these smaller kiosks all over. When we have got a platform, we have got an altar that can actually hear young people. So the people at the Ministry of the Youth, the youth-serving organizations, it's easy. Some of us came in and pushed this thing and we didn't have platforms in different organizations.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Kevin?
Yes.
What are some of the lessons you'd like the young people to listen to you in your journey?
You know, my journey is a crazy one.
Yeah.
People might see you on TV and think that maybe you dropped from heaven to here. But I remember when I came to Nairobi around in 2010, I started as an office messenger. Then I bought a motorbike. I was knocked down by that motorbike from Nyayo roundabout coming to Haile Selassie. Then my motorbike was stolen in front of Equity Bank, Haramba Avenue. That's in 2014. So I sat down and thought, okay, the problem the border people go through from Western Coast, wherever, it is the same. Because number one, they are not closer to the government.
Yeah.
Even if you have a problem, you are on your own. You have no one you can cry to, because when I lost my motorbike, there was nobody I could share with. So I was all alone. So I thought, okay, I want to form a national organization that will bring border riders together so that we can speak with one voice. We can, whenever the government wants to talk to us, the government speak to us, then we synthesize the information and feed it to the rider in the language they understand.
Yeah.
And when the riders have an information that they want to pass the government or any other organization, they tell us, then we synthesize and feed it to those organizations and the government, the language they understand. So it took me like 2 years just to get a registration certificate. Something that you can get within 20 minutes. But it took me 2 years, and it took me almost 7 years for the government to understand what we are trying to do. So all this says that nothing comes easy. You have to be dedicated and focused. And as we speak right now, I'm leading over 1.8 million people. And I have hosted 2 presidents, you see. So it has been a journey. Yeah. And reaching to a point of hosting a president to come to your function and sit with you and listen to you is not an easy thing.
Yeah.
It means that we have done a lot of things, and the government have respected whatever we are doing.
Okay.
And we continue appreciating the support we are getting from the Deputy Inspector General, the PS Interior, that we are working together to sensitize our people and bring them together and show them the way.
Okay.
And show them that this country is ours.
Okay.
And we are the only people that can make it work.
All right.
If we divert, then as he said, our kids will be asking, and where were our fathers when things were going wrong? So it is the right time to do the right things and make sure that Kenya works.
All right. Thank you so much. I'd like to give you a chance each for 1 minute closing remarks, but let's see what the feedback is all about. There's a lot of feedback. Let's see how many we can squeeze in really quick. At Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya, use the hashtag Daybreak. Let's bring that up on screen and see what you're saying. Kev Muisio says, so sad at this age and time. The price of unga is not down no matter after the protest. We've seen this before. Babu Michael says, with all said and done, the worst is about the death as a result. Trevor, what worries me most is that most of those dying are our youth. So we are killing our youth in their helpless state. These people are jobless and idle. Okay? Oleshonko says, I think the KK government has a good will, but they should know what you cannot implement a 5-year strategic plan and manifesto in 1 year. They should work on lowering the cost of living in the first phase and then get to the development in the forthcoming years. Okay? J.M. Musoma says, life has become unbearable in this era of joblessness. Youth have turned to content creation for survival. Landlords should be encouraged to install Wi-Fi in residential houses because youth can work online and earn from the comfort of their homes. Okay? Charlo Woodrosey says, young people have been used by the mighty in the society for wrong reasons. The only group that is strong and can make things happen in the country is the young. The problem is that there is no job opportunities for the young people. The old people don't want to give way. Okay. Nixon says, dear youth, open your minds and see that politicians and influential people always take advantage of you. If youth learned from the past and welcome change, Kenya would be the best place to be. Okay. Godi Baraza says the youth forums are very integral human capital that can determine the cause of the economic well-being of this nation. They only need to be united, focused, and committed to shunning any form of negative influence from anyone. Okay. Anna Ngaira says, Trevor, me as a youth, the question is, say you found your balance as a youth and you're no player in the government, you choose what do you do? If the government does not show any plan on what it wants to do with us, youth, what do we do? Is the question. Okay. Tikasan says the government has a great plan for youths. So far, we are benefiting from the subsidized fertilizer, you mean? If youth are going to be patient and trust the process, I think the government can solve our problems. Politicians must stop using youth in the name of maandamanos. Okay. Paul says there is an attempt to force everyone to accept a false reality, alternative world where we are to act like everything is okay and Kenya is a superpower with the best God-ordained leaders, super economic revival, but there is nothing like that. We will say it. Okay. Rumor says youth are unemployed, impoverished and disorganized. That's why politicians are taking advantage of us. The day the youth will unite as one is the day they will change this country. Siku moja youth wataungana. Okay, Fred, I'll start with you. Closing remarks, one sentence. What would you like the young people to hear from you this morning? Just one sentence as a closing remark.
To my fellow youth, my advice to you, if you are doing something, do it with all your heart. Sababu, these politicians, that is their job. They are also following their dream. If you have some job you want to do or you are doing, focus on it. Okay. You'll succeed. Okay. One day at a time.
All right.
One day at a time.
Okay.
Yes.
Sylvia?
My advice to the youth is let's leverage on technology, let's learn new skills, and most importantly, let's be disciplined.
Okay. George?
Life ni hard, my youth. Kitu unafanya, majobu unafanya, mazetia bidii. Na wale wasioje, wana kitu ya kudu, tafuta kitu unaweza kuwekea do. No work out.
Okay. Kevin?
To the people that I lead, first of all, I want just to say that let's stop complaining and try to, if the fuel is the thing, let's increase our fares also, maybe by 20% so that we can cope up with the increase in fuel. And number two, let's have respect. Let's maintain peace because we are so many and people always tend to take us like hooligans. We want to show them that we are not the hooligans. They think that we have been for a very long time. We are a changed sector. So let's maintain peace and protect our country.
Okay. Zaina?
From whichever sector you belong, whatever contribution you're making, persist and be consistent.
Okay. Maliba?
Benjamin Disraeli, I don't know whether that's the right way of saying it, says, is quoted for having said that almost everything great ever made was done by the youth. And somewhere, I think in 1 Timothy 4:12, the Bible says, let no one despise your youth. Okay. It's just important to let young people out there know that you're actually on the right trajectory. When you wake up every morning, whatever you are trying to do in your studies, waking up and trying probably to till the land, you are on the right trajectory. But the one thing you need to all build is patriotism. Okay. Let us be patriotic over and above everything else. All we have built the individual and forgotten to build the citizen. And that is why we have got a lot of problem in our county assemblies and in government and everything else. We went to election last year. We are already complaining about leadership now. For the simple reason that we approach elections as an event and not a process. So you are doing well. Let no one despise you. You will get there eventually. Okay. Don't worry, our TBTs will always be lit. Okay. Because we will see where you have been, but where you are going is actually a very good place.
All right.
So keep on doing what you are doing.
Okay.
We will eventually get there. The Swahili say, twendeni tutafika.
All right. Thank you very much for making time, all of you, this morning. Arnold Maliba, policy analyst, Zaina Kombo, convener, Youth Serving Organizations of Kenya. Frederick Odhiambo, shoe vendor, uses the buy shoes hashtag. Kevin Mubadi, national chairperson, Boda Boda Safety Association of Kenya. Sylvia Charlo, CEO, Daring Marketing. And George Nyaseme, a matatu driver. Thank you very much for making time this morning. We're taking a quick break on Daybreak. When you come back, it's Friday, people, so it's time for Social Square and Level Up Friday. Ben Sue is coming up and DJ John Falme, Royal Majesty. See you in a bit. Yeah.